Hmm. Hello there. I'm not sure why I'm joining as CDEvents, but I should try to fix that. It shouldn't be CDEvents.
Is it because
Yeah,
you're the
or
host? Maybe?
Sorry?
Maybe because you're the host? Is that what's happening?
Shouldn't be there. Maybe because I was logged in sometime to the Zoom account on Chrome, but
yeah, that's if you log in on the browser,
yeah,
it picks it up automatically. So I had that before.
okay.
What a
I guess
weird design.
I'll check out then and then I'll come back. Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon, guys.
Hello, good
Morning.
afternoon, good morning. So
Andre,
let's
are
wait.
you back in Europe?
I am, yes.
Okay, yeah. I was curious if you already had made it back or not, but yeah. Actually, I'm gonna be in Europe starting next week. I'll be in France.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that should be pretty fun.
Nice.
How was
Yes.
Cube? It was CubeCon, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. I put a few updates on the agenda.
Oh,
About
nice,
CubeCon.
nice.
So it was basically, for me, it was basically pretty much running around all the booth and all the people talking about CDEvents, most of the conference.
Cool. Nice. Good to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I thought it was quite positive.
I'm myself now. Great.
Welcome back, Emil. So let me start sharing the notes. So the 13th. Okay. Let's get started. I would say it's 4 past already. So welcome everyone to the CDEvents working group. Feel free to sign yourself into the notes. Let me share the link on the chat. So my name is Andrea Frittole, I work for IBM. I'm in UTC most of the times, at least. Yeah, and so usually we start, if we have new attendees, with them. So so Felipe, welcome to the meeting. You don't have to, but if you would like to, feel free to introduce yourself, say a couple of words.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And thanks for having me. My name is Felipe. I work at Farfetch here in Portugal. Mostly I work with CI/CD and observability space. Most of my career on observability, but for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I've been very focused on CI/CD, Argo CD, Argo events, Argo workflows, a lot of Jenkins, and that's pretty much it.
Great.
Thanks and welcome.
Thanks.
Okay. So I added a couple of things on the agenda. The first one was a proposal for governance and contributor ladder. And then I had updates from KubeCon, Cloud Native Con. And then the connecting and linking events, PR. And then I thought I had an item for, I put it in the wrong, tickets and approvals. But yeah, let me know if this works, if there are things you would like to discuss first, or is it okay to go through this as it is?
Yeah. I see how chunky the KubeCon section is. So curious to see what happened there. So pretty excited. But yeah, let's definitely go through go through the items.
Great.
Okay, cool. So I finally started putting together a draft for the governance and contributor ladder. And thanks, Emil, for diving into the reviews on that. So we still have a bootstrap governance at this time, where we basically took people from the CDEvents and we put them as governance for the project. But we don't have formal policies in place and a contributor ladder and so forth. So that's what I'm trying to address in this PR. And basically, the idea is to set an initial, to start having an election for the governing board. And my proposal there would be to provide some continuity, because basically Emil and myself have been doing the governance side of things for the last couple of years, I would say, almost. Yeah. To have an initial term of 1 year for myself and Emil, and put 3 seats up for election for 2 years terms, so that then we have staggered elections. So every year we put up for election two or 3 of the seats out of the 5. So that would be my proposal. And then I included then also the contribution ladder, which I mostly copied from the Tecton project, which I am a maintainer from as well, and I adapted it to CDEvents. And the idea is also that then we have, for the different projects, we can have clear roles defined, and we can have reviewers and maintainers identified clearly, so that we can also start adding new maintainers for people like, for instance, Ben, who has been contributing a lot and for ages to us and so forth. But yeah, and define some processes and expectation for people joining. Yeah, I didn't necessarily intend to go through all the details of the PR in the meeting, because I think it might take maybe too much time, but I would welcome reviews and comment from everyone. But if folks prefer, I can open the PR, we can read it in the meeting as you.
I think it's fine to leave it out, not going through it now, but everyone should, of course, look into it. And if you have any comments and want to discuss it, then please bring it up, I guess, on the coming meeting, I would say.
Okay. Then moving forward in the interest of time. So yeah, last week I was in Chicago at KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, and I had a few conversations with different people about CDEvents. So one comment I got a couple of times, at least, maybe more, was about visibility of who's adopting CDEvents today, who's contributing to it, and so forth. And so the idea would be to make like project and company logos, add them to the website of CDEvents.dev, so that people can see that we Jenkins, Spinnaker, Tecton involved. We have Ericsson, IBM, Apple, whatever companies that they are involved and supporting the project. And I'm aware that for the company side, especially, this might require special clearance and approval from the involved parties. So I created an issues for now, and I think we could start setting up a PR for the project, and then maybe make individual PRs for different companies involved, and then get reviews from the responsible parties, if it makes sense.
And then projects is just a blanket statement for basically anything that doesn't fall under companies. Would that be a good definition for that?
Yeah, I was thinking about like open source tools.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, it doesn't have to be open source as well, I guess. We could have, if we have non-open source tools supporting CDEvents, we could have that as well. So yeah, maybe it needs to be defined. Right. So I had some conversation with Harbor team there because we had some proposal with the Harbor team. Harbor is a registry hosted in CNCF, is a graduated project at CNCF, OCI registry. And they are definitely interested in adopting CDEvents. The concern they raised a concern in the past about the fact that there is a not perfect overlap between the events that Harbor sends today, they support cloud events today, and what CDEvent covers in terms of schema. So I created an issue. I had some discussion with them how to address this, and they were really they really wanted to have the ability of sending cloud events for all their events in a way that the consumer could use the same kind of SDK to consume all of them. So if it makes sense, so that they don't have like CDEvents for certain events and other events for other kind of events that
do you have an example? Like I see the GitHub issue, but there's really no example of like what type of events they're, or even a list of events. Just kind of get an idea of what they're thinking.
Yeah, sorry. I should link there is another issue where you have the list, I think, but maybe like quota full or something like that. Or so they have some events that we don't have on CDEvent side, and I think it's a general. I mean, they have artifact pushed, artifact pulled, artifact tagged, and things like that. We don't have all of those. We only have artifact pushed, but we could add artifact pulled. I think it would make sense for an interoperability point of view. But we discussed in the past that not all events would probably make sense from an interoperability point of view. And we had similar discussion with like when the people from JFrog joined our meeting to discuss the events they have. And I think the case will happen again and again where we have events from a tool that are not included in the CDEvents spec. And so I think it would make sense to find a general solution for these. And especially, I mean, to first of all, to be able to finish the Harbor implementation, which I think it would be a really nice to have, as it's quite popular tool and used by many commercial registries. So I made a proposal. I think if we have time later at the end of the meeting, maybe we can get into the details of the proposal. Otherwise, yeah, if you want to review this.
Yeah, so I do have actually a lot of questions around this. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to kind of like go through them. So maybe we can have like a separate meeting for this in general, but like I do have some concerns with introducing like a kind of a general way of like sending events, mostly because like the whole goal is like interoperability, but like all we're doing from what it looks like is taking their API and just making it an event, right? So I'm just curious, and that's why I wanted the list, the two list of events that they're kind of curious about, and just kind of see what makes sense. because in the actual doc or in the working group document, it says over at the other issue, it says that it must support all event types. CD event notifications must support or must cover all event types, which I don't know if is feasible. But yeah, like I said, I think more information is needed before we can really even begin to think about the proposal, to be honest. That's kind of like where my 2 cents is at, but I'm just like really concerned, like when someone's like, hey, let's take our whole event model or our whole API and throw it into CD events, right? I don't know if that's the right approach, but if events are missing that make sense for interoperability, then those should be added. But just to say, hey, you know, we need this for our own tool to work, you know, that I think that's a different problem that is trying to be solved there.
No, I totally agree. I mean, we should not get into CDEvents itself, things that are not relevant for interoperability. But they wanted to, and I think that's a reasonable ask. They wanted to have a way that where a consumer of the events from Harbor could say, yeah, we expect CDEvents and we want to be able to use, you know, CDEvents SDK at least to do an initial parsing of all the events coming from Harbor, and not having to know that for certain events we need to use CDEvents, and for other events we need to use something different. So, well, one idea that I had how we could address this was to add like a separate namespace, like something like dev.cdeventsx. And then we would stop there from a CDEvents point of view. And so everything that is under that namespace still needs to follow the same structure and rules that we have for other events. I was thinking that they should probably have a tool name in the namespace to avoid conflicts. But the schema for those events would be hosted on Harbor side, so that it's clear that's a Harbor event. It's something defined by them and maintained by them. It's not something maintained by us, so it's not something where you should expect interoperability. But at least then we could have the SDK saying, okay, well, if I see dev.cdeventsx, I'll just parse the context, which I know is standard format, and then we just return a raw message for the payload, because I don't know anything about it, basically. But yeah, I know that this is possibly controversial, but I really would like to get to a solution with the Harbor folks, so we can, you know, find a solution for this. So I've ever thought about this. And maybe if we have time at the end of the meeting, we can discuss it further, if it makes sense. So just to...
Yeah, I also have a comment there, because I think that the SDKs, I see the need for having one SDK to serve all these purposes, but then at the same time, if the payload is very free, then you cannot anyway use the SDK for parsing that custom specific payload, right? So you would anyway need another library to parse that part of the event then. But yeah, that's
hooks of some kind is one way of doing that. But yeah, like, I don't know, it's interesting. I think definitely more discussion definitely needs to be had here. I'm just more concerned about it from an interoperability point of view, because like, you know, if these events, let's say, start getting used by other tools, and then the SDKs don't like parse it, and then people need to bring in their libraries to parse these events, then it kind of like destroys the whole interoperability that we're trying to solve, right? So that's the concern. That doesn't mean we can't solve it though, but that's kind of like the biggest issue that I'm seeing right now, is how do we go about making it flexible enough where interoperability is still preserved well enough. But yeah, it's hard to say right now.
No, I share your concern, and I'm torn between like you know, not providing hook for less interoperable type of things, but also I want to see adoption happening. So I think we need to be careful about this. I totally agree. But yeah, hopefully we can find a good solution. Right. So apart from that, they also mentioned like a couple of other registries like Key.io and ZotHub that we might want to look into for sending these events. So CNCF app delivery tag, right, is still only a quick chat with them about CDEvents. I mean, they're still interested, but yeah, so as a tag, they don't have contributors to put on integrating CDEvents and something like Potato Head. But if that's it's something that they would still support if we had contributors working on that. So I had a chat with Michael Kreshu from Argo CD, and he's definitely still very interested in CDEvents. He had some thoughts about how we could go about the implementation to make it easier to do an initial implementation. And his proposal was to use Argo notifications. I mean, with Argo notifications, you would have to use basically some kind of templating mechanism that they provide, as opposed to using SDKs to send these events. But as it's basically a no-code implementation, it's something that you could package and deploy together with Argo if you wanted Argo to send CDEvents. So he was proposing we could go down that route for the beginning, and that would be applicable also for workflows then. So both Argo CD and Argo workflow. And together with Michael also, we had a meeting with folks from Canoe.io. So Canoe.io is a new initiative in the area of IDP, so internal development platform. And this is led by, there is AWS, Adobe, Autodesk, Salesforce, and someone else. But it's an open source group that they formed, and they're very interested in CDEvents. So basically what they do in Canoe, they define a set of capabilities for IDPs. And they also have their special favorite set of tools that they want to bring as a kind of reference implementation. That's what they use in-house, basically, which includes Argo, among other things. But then they would like support for interoperability for two reasons. One, they would like it to make it easy to swap tools for other tools. So like if I'm using Argo CD for CD, maybe someone else wants to use Flux, and they wanted to make it easy for someone to pick up Canoe.io and make their own distribution with Flux instead of Argo. And the other thing is that they use Backstage as a portal for their developers in their reference implementation. And they really like the idea of having a single language for events coming from the different tools that they can use then to surface information to the developers about pipeline runnings, resources provision, and so forth. In that space, they would be really interested in extending the current scope of CDEvents to something like infrastructure type of events. So like virtual machine or cluster provision or things like that. And they're really keen on this interoperability idea we have in CDEvents. So they wanted to work with the Argo community and help us drive that implementation. Yeah. Any question or comments on this?
So is this a company or what is, because I'm looking at their website, I'm still having trouble to understand like who owns it. Because you mentioned AWS. Is this like people from AWS or is this like backed by AWS? Like I'm trying to understand that statement.
I mean, it's people from AWS, Autodesk, and so forth, but I think it's backed by the respective companies.
Cool. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, so I asked whether they plan to make this part of some foundation eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But basically they wanted to have the kind of their own independent group foundation, at least for now.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think I really like the idea that they want to have interoperability baked into their
Mm-hmm.
IDP platform, because I think that can really help driving CDEvents adoption. Because if all these companies that they build their IDPs using this kind of set of tools, then they will start asking for, well, having support, CDEvent support in the tools that are involved in their set of tools and architecture, basically. Right. I had a conversation with a couple of folks from Kusari. It's a startup in the software supply chain security area. And they maintain an open source software called Guac, guac.sh. Guac is a short for guacamole because it fits nice with salsa requirement, which is a specification for supply chain security standards. So it's guac and salsa. Anyways, so what they do in Guac, they basically provide some kind of storage for things like SBOM, so software bill of materials, and other documents associated with the supply chain. And they are interested in ingesting SBOM through CDEvents, because today they have storage for these documents, but they miss the context of where these documents come from. And CDEvents would give them the right kind of context for that. And so the only thing that would be missing today is having a SBOM link in artifact events. Actually, for OCI type of artifacts, they might already start trying something, because they might assume that the SBOM is deployed in the OCI registry together with the artifact. But they would prefer having an SBOM link in the artifact events. So, and if they add that, then they could use it to basically pull the SBOM from the URL provided and store this information. So I plan to make a proposal to add the SBOM attribute to our artifact events, so they can work with that. And maybe we can include that in the upcoming release, because it should be pretty straightforward.
Can we make that potentially generic? Like, I'm assuming, like, you know, SBOM is like one potential link, but you know, I can definitely see like other types of links as well. Just like, you know, just like the link just to the raw artifact as well might be nice, like, you know, outside of like an SBOM, which I think we already do, but
yeah, yeah,
so yeah. So I think, so would this be a different link than that link, than the link that we provide back, like when an artifact is published, for example, like we have the link in there? Like, what would be the difference there?
So the artifact itself is, the link to the artifact is the artifact itself. The SBOM is a metadata file where you have the list of things that are included
dependencies
in your artifact, dependencies and so forth. So the length, because there's no standard for where an SBOM should be stored, even though there are some attempts now to standardize that. But based on different artifact types and so forth, you could have the SBOM stored in anywhere or produced anywhere by the build system. So the idea is that if we provide the link to the URL, to the artifact, and the link to the SBOM together, then the Guac could retrieve the SBOM to store it internally. And I mean, in future, we could have other type of things linked as well, like attestations, for instance. But I think, yeah, SBOM is relevant enough that it could be its own field.
But or we could have. But it's only relevant for one language, though. That's what I don't like about it.
Why only one language?
I thought SBOM is only for, isn't it only for Java, or is it for?
No. It's a generic concept. It's across all programming languages, really.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
I mean, there are different kind of SBOM, so there are a few different formats available. And like Cyclone DX, for instance, is more typical for Python users, but like SPDX is the most standard one, and SPDX is really language agnostic.
Yeah, I saw it. Okay, I was thinking the one specific to Java, but it looks like there's multiple. Okay, yeah, I think in that case, yeah, SBOM link is perfectly fine then. Sorry, I was confused with it being specific to Java, but it looks like it's not.
Okay, so I plan on making a proposal for this, and we can have also further discussions then on the proposal for that.
Quick one, Andrea. Just to understand, you mentioned you want to make this specific to the registry or the opposite. Just to get it right, if I understood you correctly, like just the link for the SBOM, assuming it's in the registry or open to other places as well. Because some tools publish like Black Duck and X-Ray, you can publish this to a link external to the registry, right?
Yeah. No, I was planning of making it generic.
Okay.
Only what the Guac folks mentioned is that in case of OCI artifacts, they could try and make an assumption on their side that it is in the registry, and in that way they would not need a link. But personally, I would prefer that we do provide the link, so they just rely on the link, because as you said, it's in some cases it could be in a registry, but in many other cases it will not be stored in a registry. So
okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The last thing they mentioned, I think we had some presentation in the past about async API, and they mentioned it might be interesting for us to use something like async API or Open API for CDEvents instead of using JSON schema. So what they're doing for now, they have some tool to convert JSON schema into Open API to integrate it in their tools. But yeah. Anyway, just a statement of interest on this. Yeah, the next one is sorry. So this tool I wasn't aware of, that just someone mentioned it to me and I thought it was interesting. It's basically a dashboard to display DORA metrics. Yeah, so I thought it would be interesting to maybe integrate with something like this for our POCs and demos. It would be nice to be able to use this kind of dashboard and see that you can populate this information using CDEvents. So I just wanted to mention it. I haven't looked into it yet, but I wanted to mention it here.
Is this somehow related to the 4 keys project at Google, or? Because I think that's also something similar, maybe not a dashboard, but at least a database to store the results of the DORA metric, right?
Yes, it seems similar to what 4 keys did.
From 4 keys, or?
Yeah, I don't know if it is related at all with 4 keys, but it seems similar in mission. But I was interested into looking into this because we had an initial plans to work with the 4 keys team, but we have like several failed attempts to get back in touch with them, so they didn't respond for a long time to our request for collaboration. So yeah, so this might be an alternative to look into also, because in the visualization team, the visualization team at Ericsson, they started working on the visualization. They demoed something with Grafana, so I think it might be nice if we could have built like a Grafana dashboard where we show some of our visualization and maybe combine with some of this. But yeah, so that's really, it was really just brainstorming. I thought I'd share it. I don't know if it's a good candidate or not, but something it could be interesting. what else? I had a chat with the folks at Harness, and Ravi from Harness used to collaborate with this group. So I met him at the Harness booth. So we discussed about CDEvents, and I mean, from Harness platform point of view, implementation would probably be not challenging from a technical point of view. However, I mean, from the product side, the engineering is really focused on like taking care of user demands right now. So CDEvents is not part of their scope because there are no end users asking for that at the moment. But yeah, we discussed the possibility of maybe building a POC in collaboration with the dev advocacy team at Harness. And so that might be a way to, to build something and also start, apart from Harness, to start getting some kind of adoption for products and vendors. Because I think with products in general, I think as long as there is no demand from end users, it will be hard otherwise to get CDEvents adoptions. So we talked about, so I talked to the folks at Dagger.io. We went together with Mauricio Salatino. So we had a chat with the folks at Dagger.io, and they're interested in pipeline observability, and they look for a solution for that in the past. They looked into distributed tracing, but the main showstopper for them was the lack of fan-in capabilities there. So you can only fan out with distributed tracing, you cannot fan in. So CDEvents might be an interesting alternative for them, as long as it supports fan in, fan out, which I thought it was very good information for us, because it links into the links proposal that you have been working to. But yeah. Sorry, you want to say something else, Ben, about this?
I was going to say tracing actually does support fanning in. It just depends on how they persisted their traces. So from the sounds of it, it sounds like they created a new trace when they fanned out, and when they fanned in, all these new trace IDs, you can't merge them all together. So that's kind of the issue that they're having there. However, in our case, luckily, because we don't need to create a new trace, if you will, when we fan out, it should be able to support fanning out and fanning in that particular case. But if you have a name that or a contact for Dagger.io, I want to understand why they had trouble fanning in with tracing, because there could be something that I'm missing, because it is supported. It just depends on your implementation. So I want to make sure that what their use case is something that we thought of and addressed. So I just want to make sure that is covered. So if you have a contact, that would be great.
Yes, I need to dig the name from my notes, but I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool.
Thanks. Yeah. So finally, one general comment, my impression, talking also to some of the vendors, it seems that many of the vendors are associate the idea of interoperability with making it easier for users to leave their platform. I just said, well, if you bring interoperability in, then it's easier to go to other systems. And yeah, so I think my take on that is that it's actually also easier for users to adopt their platform. So you can see the opposite. And
wait, so their concern is that their product is crap, so people want to leave it, so they want to lock them in. Is that literally their argument? Like, what? I'm trying to understand. Like, because like, are they not confident in their product? Like that, I don't know if that's a good argument in my opinion. Like, oh, they'll leave our platform if interoperability is easy. Well, just have a good product, like, like
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So in fact, my comment, I mean, my take is that you should have an excellent platform to solve people's problems, and you should keep people through excellence, not through lock-in and attrition.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, but just wanted to share the fact that some people still share this kind of
fear. Yeah.
a fear, which is
unfortunate. Okay, well, that's definitely going to be something, especially for smaller companies, when we look to branch out more, is how do we alleviate that fear? Because people, that's what a lot of companies do, is like they try to lock you in. I mean, we see this, like in the early days of like SQL, like that's exactly what they did, right? They wanted you to be locked into their databases, and and even with AWS, people were feeling locked in with using AWS. So things like other tooling came about, like Terraform, to kind of solve this fear of being locked in to AWS. But why was AWS never afraid of people being able to leave easily, through tools like Terraform and whatnot? Well, because AWS is a leader in that space, and they're going to win you over by excellence. But of course, not everyone's gonna share that same opinion. But yeah, we'll definitely need to figure out a good way to alleviate this fear, because I can definitely see a lot of smaller vendors like really caring about this. And yeah, I definitely like your take, though. Maybe like going at it from an opposite end, saying, hey, like if interoperability is easy, and let's say they're using these larger tools, if your tool is better, they can try you out, and and that makes it an easier way to get more people to test your stuff, maybe even eventually maybe even using it, right? So that can definitely be a good way of selling it. I like that idea that you had, Andrea.
right. Cool. Yeah, that's, I think, all I had from KubeCon. Sorry, it was a lot. Thanks for bearing with me.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, so if anyone is interested in following up on any of this lead, let me know. And also share contact from Dagger.io, Ben. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
So Andrea, what was the number one takeaway buzzword from KubeCon then? Was Cano a big buzz, or was it something else, you think?
Well, generative AI was the
Generative AI,
big buzz.
of course, obviously, but the second one then.
I mean, the first keynote from Priyanka, it was about generative AI, doing generative AI on top of Kubernetes. So that was like everyone talking about that. And I think, yeah, so that platform, there's a lot of like IDP stuff, internal development platform. Which is interesting because it's, of course, there is IDP in cloud native. But there is, I mean, it's maybe more general topic, but yeah, it's happening a lot in the cloud native space. And there is an ID developer platform, I think, working group, if I'm not mistaken, in the CNCF. But yeah, so this Canoe also was set up independent from that. So.
Great.
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't say there was a big buzz about canoes, but I mean, one of the people on AWS side is also a former colleague of me from IBM. So we chatted with each other about what's going on, and so we had some conversation about this in the past. And but we met with a larger team at KubeCon. So okay, yeah, I think I probably took enough time for the meeting with this. So the next things I had in the agenda were the connecting and linking events proposal, as well as the tickets approval proposals.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you my updates. I actually had a early meeting with a meal this morning, based because I ended up moving a couple things around in the proposal and adding a new linked type, because I felt like the relation link was trying to solve like kind of two problems. One, kind of like explaining the connecting of the graph, as well as you know, like actually relating metadata, or not, well, I guess you can consider it metadata, to actual like nodes, if you will, in a graph. So kind of mentioned like maybe separating those two, and so we had a pretty productive meeting there. So I'll have a PR. I mentioned to him as well that I'll have a PR later today. I know I said that last week, but this change actually turned out to be a lot bigger as in like I realized there was an examples folder that completely missed. So I spent all day updating all the examples and adding that. So so that PR update is going to be coming pretty soon. So and then also all added the optional links field to the context as well. So that's going to be another commit. So there's actually three commit. The first commit is the actual update to the links proposal itself, which introduces this new type and moves some things to make it flow better. And then the second commit is the yeah, or you can say examples. I was going to say it's actually the optional links is the technically the second commit, but yeah. But yeah, the example is the third commit. Yeah, and the second commit is the optional fields to the context. Cool. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, and so like I said, that PR is going to be good to go, and like I think we're at a really good spot now. I mean, we've been at a really good spot, but like I think answering these last questions and kind of reorganizing stuff to where, you know, the proposal reads easier. I feel like it's at a really good spot now. You know, to be merged soon. So I'm pretty happy with where it's at. So yeah, like I said, have that PR updated, and yeah, pretty excited.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Ben. Yeah. So do you have a rough idea when do you think this might be ready?
Yeah. Oh, you mean the PR when it will be updated? It'll be today. Yeah. It'll be sometime. I just need to get through all the examples. So which is the basically the reason why is like I needed to create examples for separated links, and then I realized after adding the option, I was like, I need to also create examples for the embedded links. So you know, because they are a little different, but I could use the same like use cases, so it's not going to be too much work. But also I need to update the prior examples that we have to show how links can be, you know, added to those as well, or how those would need to be updated to have all the new fields and etc. So yeah, so like I said, it'll be today though. I would say that's maybe great. Here in a few hours, hopefully. So we'll see. Yeah, so I'm going to say maybe 3 to 5 hours is the goal.
Cool. Thanks, Ben. Any other question, comments on these work from anyone? No. Okay. On the ticket approval side of things, is there any update?
Yeah. So me and Sean, we've been working diligently these last, you know, few weeks getting this ticket proposal. We started with tickets first, and then probably going to move on to approvals, maybe as a subsection or as a separate proposal altogether. But we started with tickets. So we actually started, so first we kind of brainstormed the use cases and whatnot. And then the last 2 weeks, we've been actually writing the proposal itself. So we started looking at, what the actual schema would look like, what the actual use cases would be. And so I think we got most of it, most of the schema already done. So I think we're pretty good there. We still have a couple questions that we need answering, which need to be in the proposal. So that's kind of like one of the last tasks. I mean, as well as like updating everything else, but yeah. But I think, yeah, the biggest thing is let me see if I can remember the exact question. Do you remember the question, Sean?
I think one outstanding question we have is how to link the ticket to anything else, really.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. It's how to like when you submit a PR, for instance, right? Like, how do you link the ticket to that PR? Maybe that's something the links proposal could do, but that still means the source or the source code provider, let's say it'd be GitHub or whatnot, needs some way of getting that ticket somehow. And I don't know if that's going to be like through commits or, like through some format or something of that nature, to parse out that metadata to persist the actual ticket information. But it's kind of like one of the biggest questions that one of the outlying questions that we have is just how do we link the two concepts together?
Yeah, and there's got to be like some sort of hint in like either the ticket event that kind of links it to something else, or I guess a ticket link in other events to kind of link that ticket, or maybe like Ben said, that link service, some external service that's doing the job of linking everything together. I guess one way of identifying such a link would be to provide an identifier in the commit message of the commit that in which you're actually solving or partly solving a certain ticket or issue or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's definitely something we do already internally at Apple. So
we do the same.
Yeah. So that's definitely one approach. It's the question is just more or less, like what is the best, or what is a good way, and maybe that since multiple companies are already doing that, maybe that is the way to go forward. But like I said, we just kind of left it as an open question just because we don't know if that is that was my thinking, is just have it in the commit, but there could definitely be other solutions which I might not be familiar with, but yeah, so yeah, we'll see, but that's something that we're still thinking about. So but yeah, definitely commit I think is probably going to be what we go with. But then it's like, we could, how can we fully, so one of the use cases, right, is like fully automating this whole like ticket lifecycle as well, right? Like you have the ticket being opened, it gets like linked to the source change, and then it'd be nice when it gets deployed, tested, and all that, it gets resolved back in the link service, having that full process of automation there. So one of the questions is like, at what points can we update the tickets, whatever's consuming this, right? So yeah, like for instance, like a ticket might move from open to investigated or fixed even when the PR is merged, and then I don't know what can go from there. Maybe
verified or something like that.
Verify, exactly, like verified when it gets tested. And then is that all going to happen through the consuming of those events? So these are the questions that I'm kind of like wondering, but yeah. So
I guess that doesn't need to concern the actual format of the ticket event. Really, that's more of the consumer. I mean, the ticket system will then consume the events, and how the ticket system handles those events and consumes them, it's up to the ticket system. Or so it's not really part of the protocol, I would say, to dictate how a ticketing system would handle such events. Rather, that the ticket event needs contains the information needed for a system to act on it, of course.
But so what I was going after is like when I'm writing a proposal, I'm like, how would this look in real life? You know, like how would these systems consume these, and how would it actually work? So that's kind of like what I'm thinking. And you're right, it would be some sort of consumer that would, you know, take this verified like test case or test suite event and make the ticket updated. But I just want to make sure that, you know, the ideas that we have on how this would work in practicality or in the actual real world makes sense, and those questions are answered with some solution, rather than just throwing our hands up and saying I don't know, right? So that's kind of like what we're kind of thinking about right now, is just these kind of like remaining questions. But for the most part, like the proposal's going well. We still have a little bit of work to do there, but I think we should probably have something pretty soon, I would say. What do you think, Sean? Like, I think like we're trucking along pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think we could at least have something to look at next week and get
maybe next like week or two. Yeah.
May not be a finished product, but something to get some input on.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you see a requirement, for example, relating to what is a ticket? Could a ticket also be, is it a bug? Could it also be a requirement? Could it be whatever?
What's a requirement? Like, I'm not too familiar with.
Or use case that some user of your product, your tool, has said we want this requirement to be fulfilled. This
like a feature.
Use case. So they might write a ticket in Jira for that, I guess, for a new proposal or something. Would that also then be a ticket in your thinking?
That would be a ticket, yes.
Okay. So both bugs and implementations. Yep. Good. Cool.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it from our side. Like I said, that one's going really smoothly. So it's been nice working with Sean on that.
Cool. Nice. Looking forward to it. So we only have a couple of minutes left. I wonder if Jalander or Sean or Felipe, do you have anything else you wanted to bring up before we close?
Maybe I'll have some updates, like to get the PRs reviewed, so that SDK part 2 to generate the Java SDK using JSON schema. I think that still need a review, I think. And also our team has started, we have done some examples for Flux integration with CDEvents, and that will be talking to the Flux community. So we'll show up like what's the POC kind of thing that we have done, and show them like how CDEvents work with the Flux is what we'll be having a meeting with them soon. Yeah, so
that's great. Thanks. Would you mind inviting me or keeping me in the loop, Jalander, if you
sure.
talk to the Flux community?
Yes, yeah, sure. So we'll have in, I think, this week or next week. So we'll send that invite to you, Andrew. And yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. We are at time, but thanks everyone for joining today. And yeah, see you next week.
Thanks for sharing.
All right,
Yeah,
bye
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.